Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Mitchell Brewer, and it might be the weekend, but the NASCAR news has not slowed down, with a big breaking silly season news coming out last night after I posted my video talking about how Clint Bowyer said he didn't really know what he was doing last year. Well, it turned out he kind of knew what he was doing next year, as he announced late last night that he was going to be stepping away from full-time competition and stepping into a role with Fox Sports, where he'll be in the booth with Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy. A lot to unpack there. First off, I think that's a great move for Fox Sports. I've told people that I think they needed a third person. And I know a lot of people like the three-man booths, or the two-man booth with Gordon and Joy. I just think they needed something a little bit extra. And I think that's something that goes both ways, with NBC having too many people in the booth and Fox Sports not having enough. And I really think this is going to really add to Fox Sports' setup, if you will, with having somebody that's... And I think Clint's a really good commentator, too. When he covered the Xfinity races this year, I think there's more to Clint than just being the funny guy. I think he's going to add like a Dale Jr. like element to Fox Sports. Obviously not as big of a name as Dale Jr., but I think it's going to add really nicely. I think it's going to work really well. You have Mike Joy, who I think is probably the best in the sport at commentating. Jeff Gordon, who is Jeff Gordon, and he does a great job with Fox Sports. And now Clint Bowyer. I think that's a really good team. And for Fox, I don't think it's any secret that they've been a step behind. They've stepped behind NBC the last couple of years, especially since Dale Jr. has came in. But I think this is a step in the right direction for Fox. This year, they seem to be getting a little bit better. The pandemic kind of threw a wrench in everything, and it hurt everybody. But I think this is definitely going to help them. Now back to the racing side of things. What does this mean for the 14? And we've had endless fan speculation about how it's Kyle Larson going to be in the 14, how it's going to be Chase Briscoe. Well, it seems like it's going to be Chase Briscoe. That is the favorite. We had Bob Pockris, among other reporters, saying that, he is the guy that is going to be the favorite to land the ride, which is super interesting to me. It makes me wonder, is he got any extra sponsorship that's coming with him to land that 14 ride? Is it true that he's going to land the 14 ride? Because with this silly season, absolutely anything can happen. Friendly reminder, Michael Jordan is going to own a team next year. It's going to be interesting. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we got that news by the end of this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if they held on to it for a little bit, with Briscoe still racing in the Xfinity Series playoffs and being a championship contender. But yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to really surprise people, because I think it's not going to be Larson, which I think a lot of people kind of, even before everything had happened with Larson and his racist statement that got him fired from Ganassi and suspended by NASCAR, I think a lot of people had him going to Stewart-Haas, maybe even replacing Kevin Harvick, who a lot of people remember at the beginning of the year thought maybe this could be it for Harvick, but all of a sudden Harvick says he's going to stick around. You have Chase Briscoe that lights the world on fire in Xfinity, and here we are. And I think it's a good move for Stewart-Haas. They're looking younger and younger as each year progresses, and now they've got two of the best rising stars in NASCAR at their stable, if they hire Chase Briscoe. Because just remember, this isn't confirmed. It could change at any particular moment. But I do think it is really interesting, and it kind of really, everybody's focus has been on that fourth Hendrick car. And is it going to actually be Kyle Larson in that car? Is it going to be Eric Jones in that car? Or is it going to be somebody else that hops in that has money? I think with Briscoe pretty much being all but confirmed in that 14 car, and again, if I'm wrong, it's going to look hilarious, which, I mean, yesterday I said Clint Bowyer, nobody knew about his future, and then within hours of me posting that video, he uploads a long essay about how he's retiring. So anything is possible, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see where this situation goes and how the dominoes just keep falling as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. Now, on the talk of Clint Bowyer, there's some other news that came out today that sparked a lot of buzz, and this came from Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal, who announced that NASCAR had paused its advertising deal with Barstool Sports, which with Barstool, there's two ways you can go with it. You are either all in on Barstool and you think that it's awesome that they're in the sport, you like Dave Portnoy, or you hate Barstool and you think it's awful that they are in the sport. There is no in between. And when that tweet came out, a lot of people weren't exactly surprised with it, especially with the political climate. Barstool had their own controversies. It's not the biggest surprise that NASCAR would pause it. And I think that's a key word in all this is pausing it. But then we had Dave Portnoy come out and say the following on Twitter. This isn't true at all. Clint Bowyer and I had nothing to do with NASCAR marketing. We did our own expletive, independent of them. NASCAR had nothing to do with the pod and nothing to do with us starting or stopping it. Rubbing is Racing was a Barstool pod. That would be like saying the NHL shut down Spitting Chicklets, which is their NHL podcast, or the PGA shutting down Foreplay. So where did this all come from? And doing a little bit of research, I read the Sports Business Journal article by Adam Stern about it. There was a podcast clip where Dave Portnoy talked about this, and I'll insert it right here.
New ad deal in place, or what's going on?
Yeah, hopefully we relook at that in like a year or so. So obviously, I love Clint, like friendly, like him in every way that you can be like, oh, this guy's a good dude. So COVID happened, it stopped. We started picking up a little bit, but it's like, do I have to go to the office? And then to be honest, NASCAR had so many like BLM issues, and I started having BLM issues, and it just was like, is this the right time for either of us to like co-join just from like aesthetics point of view? And the answer was probably like, let's let it settle. It was probably better for both.
So it's kind of at a pause right now.
Yeah.
All right, so NASCAR's on a pause. There you go, Ryan. Yeah. All right.
So in that clip, Dave essentially says, yes, we've paused our deal with NASCAR, and confirmed what Adam Stern's tweet said, even though he went on and disagreed with it on Twitter. So I don't know what this means. I don't think it's just flat out Barstool and NASCAR are going their separate ways. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the fact that Adam Stern said paused rather than whatever the word is, terminate their agreement with Barstool, I think that's a positive sign that maybe that they're going to be getting back together later on. Even in the podcast clip, Dave Portnoy said that he would like to examine it a year from now. So I don't think we're completely done with Barstool yet in NASCAR, but I do think it is going to be something where it's going to be a situation worth monitoring. And whenever you throw in the Barstool name, it's going to attract a lot of attention, whether it's good attention or whether it's bad attention, and it'll be interesting to watch. Personally, I think they're good for the sport, but I understand the controversy that comes with Barstool, so I'm kind of neutral on it. I think there's good things that happen if they are in the sport, and I think there's bad things that happen if they are in the sport. But I'd love to hear your opinion on it, especially since it's the fans that really matter. It's the fans that really bring in the sponsors and keep the sponsors here. So what's your thoughts with Barstool potentially leaving NASCAR, as well as what are your thoughts on Clint Bowyer stepping away from full-time competition? Do you think that it's going to be Chase Briscoe in the car, or do you think that Kyle Larson may be a surprise to come back into the 14? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you have a great weekend. I will be back on Monday with a new video. As always, follow our Facebook page, Mitchell Does Sports, for all of the latest news. Follow me on Twitter at MitchellB66. And I hope, again, that you have a great weekend and enjoy the racing at the Roval. I've been Mitchell Brewer. Thank you for watching.